Okay, so I'm not really stoked at all for this new Captain Marvel movie. However, rather than being constantly negative, I figured I'd take the time to go through some best case scenarios for what could take place by the end of the new Captain Marvel movie and how it would affect the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Keep in mind, I'm going to be referencing some old comic arcs and whatnot. So some of these narratives may not actually happen due to legal issues or already confirmed narratives by, let's say, the producers or Marvel themselves. So before you get to really going ape in the comments telling me about, oh, well, this has already been confirmed or not confirmed or what can't happen, man, just remember we are just having some fun here. We won't be discussing just endings as in the ending of the movie itself, but what rather may happen by the end of the movie. So for the sake of the title of the video, let's just call this my top 5 things that could happen by the end of the new Captain Marvel movie. Coming in at number 5 is the introduction to cosmic beings. Though from what we really understand, this Captain Marvel is centered around Carol Danvers. Maybe there's a bunch of references though to Captain Marvel, as in Mar-Vell in his experience. Even with Miss Marvel, but for sure, first Captain Marvel, we know that there was a whole lot going on with the cosmic beings and those different entities. We've had a couple of references already, but there hasn't been a complete dive in, right? This could especially be important to Thanos because remember his grandfather is Kronos, who was a cosmic being. This would inevitably have to lead it to Eros and Mentor, which are Thanos' brother and father. And you consider Kronos, he was the one or part of that created Drax the Destroyer, right? Considering that this movie takes place decades before the current time period of the main movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we could get all sorts of introductions and explanations. We know that going into this, Skrull and Kree sort of introduces this new element in that conflict, classic arcs, Secret Wars, what have you. But imagine guys like Eon being introduced, who really mentored the original Captain Marvel, helped him become cosmically aware, that is, unless he's already dead. But these are some of the most powerful beings in the Marvel period. Coming in at number 4 is the introduction or the setup to Monica Rambeau. Apparently she's in the movie, but as a kid. This doesn't really make a lick of sense when it comes to the comic and her origin. That is, if she's having any relationship with Carol Danvers. They didn't even know the other existed when Monica adopted the moniker of Captain Marvel. But maybe this movie sets up Monica being an adult by the time of Avengers Endgame. At the very least, she could take up the moniker of Photon, which was who she was after she dropped that moniker of Captain Marvel to pay the respect to the original Mar-Vell. This would be a cool character to place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but hopefully that doesn't completely ruin it, or they don't completely ruin it by suggesting she has Kree powers or something like that. Again, from a comic book standpoint, this wouldn't make any sort of sense. But Monica was indeed, at one point, leaders of the Avengers after all, so let's get her in there. Number 3 is the introduction to the quantum bands. Every Captain Marvel has basically possessed these at one point. It allows them to get the power from the quantum zone, but it also grants all sorts of other powers, which, I won't lie, seem to get made up on the fly. But that in itself is what makes them really so powerful. What if these bands are the only thing that can defeat Thanos in his current state with all the Infinity Gems? This could also get us some knowledge as to what the hell happened to the other Captain Marvels, such as Mar-Vell's son and daughter. Remember, this is Carol Danvers is the 7th Captain Marvel, right? Also, this could lead us to Quasar being introduced, which I'll be really stoked for that. But make no mistake, these bands are powerful. Remember, in Quasar, issue number 26, if I'm not mistaken, Maelstrom, he stole those bands. And there was this instance where Thanos actually saw him as a could-be threat. I don't think these bands have been referenced at all in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so maybe Captain Marvel could incentivize them to introduce them if we simply take a trip down memory lane with the other Captain Marvel. Coming in at number 2 would be an awesome scenario, and that's Mar-Vell actually reobtaining the moniker of Captain Marvel. I don't see this happening at all, but you gotta admit this would be pretty cool. What if the Marvel Cinematic Universe just set us up to think that Carol Danvers was going to be Captain Marvel, but by the end of the movie, Mar-Vell lives and he is the one who would try to save the day in Avengers Endgame. This would not only be preferable, but it would somewhat give a shout out to something that takes place in the comics, and that is Captain Marvel defeating Thanos. He was the first one to do that. What if in turn, like Carol Danvers goes back to adopting the moniker of Miss Marvel? Let's face it, man, she's not the most liked as Captain Marvel, and that's apparent in the constant reboot over like the last half decade. Hopefully, Marvel isn't just trying to force feed us into liking this character, though that seems to be what they're doing, but I think she would have more support from the comic book OGs if she ends up going back to being who she was originally, and that's Miss Marvel instead of Captain Marvel. And coming in at number 1, which would to me be the best case scenario, and that's Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers that is, she dies, or she is shown like at the end credit scene and she disappears as a part of Thanos' snap, which eliminated half of the universe, as you know. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that just because I dislike the character, I'm not that fond of her. But if I'm not mistaken, Brie Larson, yeah, she has like signed into like this multi-film deal. So I'm not exactly sure how they would make this pop off, but imagine how sick it'd be if she's like shown in the end credits disappearing before she even gets Nick Fury's like page. Honestly, I think this would be like the best case scenario. Her coming to save the day is way too predictable, but if it is revealed that she like disappeared, we could only speculate at that point what would happen in Avengers Endgame. And at that point, it is totally up in the air as to how Thanos could be defeated, if at all. It would blow people's minds, man, if she like was supposed to be this uber powerful being, the only one that could save the universe, or it seemed like that way, but she got eliminated. So that's it. Those are my top 5 like endings and things that would be cool if they were to happen in the upcoming film. Like in the comments, man, y'all let me know what you think would be awesome to have introduced. Until next time, man, y'all be easy.